With us today, we have Ramón Escobar, who is a veteran broadcaster and for more than a decade has been the Senior Vice President of Talent Recruitment and Development for CNN Worldwide. And also with us, a special treat from Washington, D.C. is Boris Sanchez, anchor of the CNN News Central program, which airs daily from D.C. Welcome to the two of you. I'm glad that you guys were able to take some time and be with us today.
Always for NAHJ.
Of course.
Always
Thanks so much for having us.
Hey, listen, this is going to be a conversation for the two of you. And I really hope that you guys can kind of get into, I really love the origin stories for both of you. But before that, I just kind of want to ask a question I think that people are dying to hear an answer to from folks like you who've made the journey, who've moved into positions where you're now leaders in the Latino journalism community. What was the one thing that put you on this path? The one thing that turned you into, it's a cliche maybe, but made you who you are today. So who wants to take a crack at that first?
Well, I've always said age before beauty, so I'll go before Boris does. That story, that question we hear all the time. Boris and I hear it all the time when we go out and talk to different groups and when we go to NAHJ convention. And it always goes back to the same thing for me, which is family. The origin story starts with the two people, my mom and dad, who decided to leave Latin America in search of a better life, and found the United States to be that place. And that story has a lot to do with why I decided to, pursue a career in journalism. Both my parents, one's from Colombia and the other's from El Salvador. Both of them are from places where there was a tremendous amount of news when I was growing up, between civil wars and all types of issues with, the world of drugs and terrorism. All of that has always been at play. And my parents, when they came to the U.S. in search of a better life, they kept telling me, you need to know what's going on in the world. You need to stay connected to Colombia and El Salvador, even though you're in the U.S. And they created in me a voracious appetite for wanting to know and stay connected to my culture, to speak Spanish at home, to understand these countries where, even though there was coverage of them, there was only, I discovered, as they pointed out to me, one-sided coverage or a myopic view or a distorted view. And that view was that basically everyone from the countries where my parents were from, I would only see them in handcuffs or, being arrested or perpetrating crime or being the victims of crime. They were always in distress. And I knew that that was not a holistic or realistic understanding of Latinos. And so my mom and dad made it very clear that if you want to change that, you should think about being part of television and journalism and shape and change what people are able to see and watch. And that was really to answer your question, Ricardo, that is the origin of my pursuit of journalism. I realized and looked up that people like me were not being portrayed accurately. And it was a real area of deficiency. It was a real hole that needed to be corrected. And my lifelong goal and dream has been to leave journalism a better place than I found it, to leave it more diverse, and to hopefully get closer to telling that accurate picture of who our people are. And knowing Boris as I do, family has played a big role in his pursuit.
Absolutely. I think our answers to this question overlap quite a bit. Before I get to my story, I have to say, Ramón, I would say that your effort to change journalism for the better has been a success, because I have firsthand watched you bring in so many different voices into CNN, and not just mentor people here, but across the board. And NAHJ has been a tremendous vehicle for that kind of empowerment. My story, I actually have the picture here, starts with this guy. This is my abuelo. And way back in Cuba, during a revolution, he fought for democracy. He fought for the ability of people to express themselves, because he watched many of his friends get beat up and arrested and disappeared for wanting to have a voice and for wanting to alter the status of the folks that lived in that society. And in an effort to bring self-determination to the island, he fought in the Cuban Revolution. After the Cuban Revolution, things took a turn that he did not like. So he decided it was time for another revolution. And for that, he got locked up. He got sentenced to 20 years in prison, essentially for trying to speak his mind, for trying to give people the ability to determine their own future and the future of their country. And hearing that story as a little kid, when I was 7 years old, surrounded by my dad, my grandfather, my mom, playing dominoes in our backyard in Miami, that shaped me enormously. The value of those ideas, of freedom of expression, freedom of belief, freedom to move around the world and to dream, to be whoever you want to be. My mom, when she was a girl, had an aptitude for writing and dreamed, aspired to one day write for a newspaper, and she was sent off to work in some menial job because of the way that the society functions. And when my parents came to this country, we got asylum because of my grandfather's being a political prisoner. Those stories were shared with me, and the idea that I could continue that legacy, that desire to tell stories, to communicate, to speak truth to power, to question power, and not face the kind of burden that my grandfather did, to me is a dream. And I knew I wanted to be a journalist from the time that I was 7 years old. And it's been an incredible journey, and having the ability to attain the opportunities that I've attained in large part because of mentors like Ramón. I mean, this is.
I didn't meet you when you were 7. I didn't meet you when you were 7, but you weren't much older than that when I did meet you. When I met Boris, he was a kid in Redding, California. When I knew of him, he had gotten a job in a small market. And if you listen to him now, I mean, think about me interviewing this kid back then, and I was just blown away by his story, right? I mean, this was a kid who grew up, has this incredible story of his family and fighting to, you know, to get into a business of journalism, a profession of journalism that his grandfather, you know, you hear this incredible story of everything he fought for, and I know for a fact his family is so proud of him, and we're all so proud of him. But I met this kid in Redding, California, and it was the first NAHJ that I was at for CNN about 13 years ago, where I invited Boris to come, and we did our very first workshop. And this was back when nobody did these, right? No ABC, CBS, NBC, nobody was doing this. And we decided we're going to do a workshop and bring together reporters from around the country and producers from around the country. And Boris was in the very first workshop we ever did at CNN. By the way, we've now done like 100 of them. But Boris was in the inaugural class, and he had just gone to Denver, and we brought him into that NAHJ seminar. I believe it was Orlando,
Anaheim.
It was in Anaheim. And it was just incredible. We met him. He got to meet all the executives. We followed him for over a year and a half till the end of his contract, and brought him over to CNN. And the rest has been history. What I love about Boris was we had this idea to throw him into the White House as a correspondent. And Boris, I mean, you got to tell everybody what that was like. I mean, this was a kid. Those of you who are watching know Miami. This is a kid from Hialeah. Who, you know, we decide we're going to send him to the White House to be a correspondent. And what was that like when you walked in?
It was surreal. It was surreal. Anytime that I think about it, the hair on my arm stands up, and I get emotional because I was thinking about my grandfather when I was walking through those gates, and how much I wish that he could have been around to see that come to fruition. And as much of a dream come true as that was, it was a grind. They say be careful what you wish for.
You remember that breakfast we had before you kind of started? I went down to Washington to have that orientation breakfast with you.
Oh yeah.
One of the things that's great about Boris is he is so he studies, he practices, he knows what, he just prepares himself, and he was ready to go. But, there are a lot of landmines out there in Washington, D.C., especially for people of color, for those of us, you and me, when we walk into a room and there's not a lot of people that look like us.
Right.
And let's be frank, it wasn't an easy place for all of us of color.
Certainly not. Certainly not. There are certain things that you learn through experience, and sadly, there isn't a class that teaches code switching. And being from a certain socioeconomic background, the way that power navigates is a lesson unto itself.
And let's just say that socioeconomic background is of the lower scale, right? Not the higher.
100%. Yes. If you don't know
both of us.
my dad used to fix cars, and when I was growing up, he would fade my hair in my backyard with a bunch of rusted cars all around, because that's how you made ends meet.
He's done good work. I really like it.
I would say that being in DC and working at the White House was not only a lesson in journalism, it was a lesson in the way that power operates. This is where, this is one of the centers of power on the planet. And so being close to decision makers, lawmakers, people that you want to become sources, cultivating them as sources, that requires a lot of sort of social learning, how to engineer trust in someone who you don't know, who doesn't share much of your background or much of your experience. Further, in just journalism itself, you are drinking from a fire hydrant. Like it is just a rush of news that is constantly coming. And I covered the Trump administration. And in one moment, I would be preparing for a live shot about foreign policy and North Korea and what he plans to do with NATO. And I was sort of thinking, what am I hearing from sources? What has he said publicly? What's the analysis here? And as I'm walking up to the camera, getting ready to go, a tweet pops up, and it's about pick NFL players, Hamilton, healthcare policy, his feuds with Democrats, or even with fellow Republicans. And so you have to completely turn around and 180 into a different direction. And that ability to do that over and over again just amplified my skill set. And one of the things that I throw back to you, Ramón, as a mentor, is when you're mentoring folks, how do you know when someone is ready to take on a challenge like that? Because I see you do it all the time, and I think it's a unique talent when you think someone is ready for something that they may not be aware that they're ready for.
Yeah. It's a great question. Sometimes when I go to you and I tell you you're ready, I know you're not, but I'm trying to give you the confidence to look deep within you. And like everyone listening, you hear, I'm sure there's people that are listening to this who have what they call inferiority complex, right? That inferiority thing. And the key to it is knowing that everybody has it. Everybody has fears and doubts about stepping onto the high wire that you've stepped on. And this is NAHJ's 40th anniversary. And I'm thinking, I go back and I pulled my little art. This is the Unity 1994.
Wow.
This is from when the groups all came together. NAHJ, there's the old logo. And it was at this convention where I was in my 4th or 5th year in the business. NAHJ had been around less than 10 years. And I met people there. And that's how I got my first job at NBC. And when I look at you and you ask that question, it's when you look at people and you say, that they have the foundational basics. They work their butt off. They study. They do the research. They're prepared. They can have a conversation. I can talk to you. I know when I met you, I could talk to you about the economy. I could talk to you about what's going on in Denver, where you were working. I could talk to you about politics. I could talk about sports. You were well-rounded. You were well-read. You were prepared. That's what it takes, because the rest you're going to learn. And it's overwhelming. And what I love about you is that, you like a challenge, and you like what I always tell people, don't underestimate Boris. It's his biggest, his biggest skill is that people underestimate him. It's getting late for that, because now people know how great you are. But, because he would always come in prepared and ready to go. And that's what I see in people. Since that session, my first session was in 1989, 35 years ago, when I started at University of Missouri at the NAHJ local chapter, but 2013 in Orlando. So it'd been 11 years ago.
Yeah.
Since then, we've hired several others from Latinos from that group.
Yeah.
Polo Sandoval, Camila Bernal, Omar Jimenez, Gloria Pazmino. We've hired so many. What advice do you have for people who are on here? Because you're now a big anchor on CNN 5 days a week. Filling in on all the biggest shows at CNN, covering politics, having big assignments on election night. What advice are you going to give the people who are sitting in the NAHJ chair who just showed up and hoping, how can they get to where you are? What were those 2 or 3 keys?
I would say to go back and listen to the response you just gave and deconstruct it. Be prepared. Do all the research that you can about who you're going to meet, what topic you're going to cover, what questions haven't been answered. Make that a work ethic. Make that part of your routine, to be immersed in the news cycle, to know what is happening about a multitude of subjects, because that allows you to broaden your horizons, what you're actually capable of communicating. I would say that one of the most important things that distinguishes local news reporters from folks that have made the leap to places like CNN is writing, your ability to write. So research what makes good writing. Al Tompkins has a great book, Aim for the Heart. Ramon, you've had him in sessions before, and you talk about writing during these workshops, because it's the backbone of what we do. I would say that perhaps the most important skill out of any that you can have on the journalism side or the personal side is resilience. You have to be able to not only absorb the mistakes, the things that don't go well, but learn from them. And that's the critical piece. It's being able to assess yourself without ego and look at where the weaknesses are. What can I improve? And if you are constantly pursuing that and you're not satisfied with where you are on any given ability, whether it's your writing, your presentation, your sourcing, whatever it is, then the future's bright, because those are the fundamentals that Ramon was talking about.
I do want to say, you said without ego, and everyone that watches this, I hope, will take that away. You are now at the top of CNN's talent. The very top of CNN talent in many ways.
Okay.
A superstar, a big star in this profession, but you still haven't lost your humility. I watched you, give the commencement speech at Syracuse University, which had to be pretty cool for a kid from Hialeah who went to that cold school, getting out of Miami to go to those cold temperatures. That must have been something special for you to walk to your alma mater at this young age and give the commencement to those kids where you sat not that long ago, and you're still humble.
It sounds silly for me to say, like, yeah, I'm so humble. It sounds like I'm bragging. No, I think that there is.
How do you stay grounded though, like that?
Well, there's a use for ego, and there's a use for self-worth that is productive. But at a certain point, you have to step away from the people or the forces around you, or even within yourself, that aggrandize you or who you are, in order to progress. Because in order to grow, you have to make yourself uncomfortable. You have to feel discomfort. You have to go beyond what you think you're capable of. And if you're doing that constantly, there is no choice but humility, because you're going to fail.
I love that. I love that. This is really important. That arrogance piece, or that should be used to battle that inferiority complex, that imposter syndrome, right? That allows you to go do what you do. But what you don't do is that you don't then take that and do it with people.
And even if you look at it from the prism of self-interest, you're better off being
Sure.
perceived that way than being perceived as a jerk.
But I know you. One of my friends says, lift as you climb. You have been that way, and you have mentored others. And I think that's so important as we celebrate NAHJ's 40th anniversary, another 40. I mean, we are the largest, now we're the largest, group in the United States in terms of, Latinos compared to other groups. We continue to grow. Our people continue to populate this land. So we have in front of us an incredible opportunity, and I'm so excited that you're in the role you're in, and it's inspiring so many people.
It's amazing, and I'm grateful for you paving the way for myself and so many others. And I wonder, Ramon, because I imagine some of the folks that will be watching this will be thinking this to themselves, what would make a good first impression when they meet Ramon Escobar at NAHJ and they're trying to talk to him? So
well, flattery gets people everywhere, but I always tell people smart flattery. What they should say is, hey, I saw Ricardo's podcast or video on the website at NAHJ. I really liked what you and Boris were talking about, referring, pick something that we said that was so brilliantly said, of course, on Boris's side. But no, I mean, something that you like or something that you wanted to add on to or something, I was thinking about what you said and here's my experience, personalize it. I tell people all the time, everybody has a gift. Everybody has a great story to tell, even if it's negative things that happen to you in your life. They make you stronger, especially our community, right? We've been through so much turmoil. And so many of us have had so many challenges in our life, whether it's our parents or ourselves or immigration challenges or just the way, things that happen to our community. Tell your story, share your gift. You have every right to be part of this profession.
Well, that's beautifully said. And that's a great way to take us out of this. I wish we had, a few more hours to talk about all this because there's so much to go through and so much to think about going forward, right? But that we can leave for the convention.
Yes, come see us in Hollywood.
And gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. I truly appreciate it. And NAHJ thanks you. We'll see you in Hollywood.
Muchas gracias, Ricardo.
A ustedes también.
Send my love.
Thank you so much.
Hasta pronto.